Hello scholars, welcome again to my second video in my series, Learn Stuff with Mr. Foe. Now, today we're going to be going over your English test that you have for tomorrow. This is Chapter 1 material in this book. So, if you're watching this video and you have a couple questions, that's great. I'm going to try to answer them. Number 10 on page 28 is this sentence. Did the other mice escape? Now, when we're diagramming sentences, we always have to ask ourselves a couple of questions. The first one is, the two parts that I need in every sentence are called my principal elements, a subject and a predicate. So I should ask myself, where are those? When I look at the sentence, what is the sentence about? Who is the sentence about? Did the other mice escape? Reading that, I can tell mice is my subject. So, just like we talked about in class, let's draw a line underneath that and organize it this way. Now, what are the mice doing? When we read the sentence, we can see that the mice are escaping. So, I hope you can see that there. I'm going to write my predicate verb underneath escape. Now, I've got a couple of other words in this sentence. And just like we talked about, every word has a place inside of the sentence when we diagram it. Now, these ones right here are pretty easy to tell, okay? The. We know that the is referring to the mice, right? It's not the escape, it's the mice. And when something is describing a subject or a noun or a pronoun, right, we know that that is an adjective. So let's do that. Let's write adjective and put that underneath there. Same thing with other. We can tell that other is referring to mice because it's not the other escape, it's the other mice. So we can tell that that describes and modifies that word. So let's draw that right here. Here's the tricky one. Woo, tricky! Did. What is did doing in the sentence? At first glance, you might think that this is an adverb. Did escape. However, on closer look, we can tell that this isn't an adverb. Instead, it's a helping verb. And I'm about to explain why. So here, I'll just draw my helping verb underneath there. Because this is an interrogative sentence, one way that helps me is I'm able to reword it as a statement to kind of figure out a little bit more of what each word is doing. So, I could say, the other mice did escape. When I say it like that, it sounds like the mice already escaped. And so instead of this being something that describes the escaping, instead it tells me when it happened. It tells me that escape happened in the past. Therefore, it helps me understand the time it's in. It's a helping verb. Let's diagram this, all right? We draw our line right here. On one side, we've got our subject. The other side, we've got our predicate. And it's the same way in any sentence. You're always going to look for that. We have our subjects. Let's write mice on here. And on this side, we have our predicate, which is escape. Let's write that. Now, I have two adjectives. These are both words that describe the word mice. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw two lines off from left to right in the direction that we read. I'll put the and other. Now, some of you might have caught me already. Good catch if you did. But this word did isn't drawn off like an adverb would be because it's not describing escaping. Instead, it's a helping verb. And just like we talked about in class, helping verbs always help their verbs. They never leave them alone. So, instead, we are going to write did escape on here because I have my helping verb next to my predicate. This would be an acceptable sentence outline and an acceptable sentence diagram to receive credit in any quiz, test thing that I give you in the future. However, I do this as an example. Now say that we added a word like quietly to that. Did the other mice escape quietly? That quietly would be an adverb. that would describe the predicate or the verb. It would say that the type of escaping that they did was quiet. And so, in that event, if I had an adverb, I would draw a line from left to right in the direction that we read, and I'd write quietly on that line. So I hope that that helps make sense. You can rewatch this a little bit, but I'm really hoping that for our test tomorrow, we have this pretty much under control. As I erase the board, I have a subscriber shout out to do. Shout out to Thatcher. Thanks for being my first subscriber in the comments. If you want to be shouted out in the next Mr. Folk Learn Stuff videos, then leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought about this video. If it was helpful, if it wasn't, if you liked my jokes, if you didn't like them at all, that's fine. Send me your thoughts and you might be shouted out in the next video. So Thatcher, thanks so much, man. Hope you're having a great night and that the studying's going well. Now, for your test tomorrow, you're going to be tested on a couple of different things covered in Chapter 1. Along with the email that I sent your parents the link with in this video is a picture that I listed the main topics of what you're tested on in Chapter 1 of Well-Ordered Language, as well as the page numbers that they're on. Now, that being said, we're going to quick go over the 4 types of sentences, as well as the principal elements. We're going to go over adjectives and adverbs in this video, and then we're going to cover verb tenses. So everybody take a deep breath, let's get ready to dive in. The 4 types of sentences are this. We have declarative sentences. Declarative sentences state something as a fact. Mr. Folk made a video, right? That's a declarative sentence. This information can also be found on page 4 and 5 of your textbook. The next type of sentence that we have is called an interrogative sentence. You can remember that Mr. Folk kept mispronouncing this word as interrogative because it's kind of like an interrogation. An interrogative sentence is a question. You're trying to get information out of that. You might say, why is Mr. Folk making a video? That's an interrogative sentence. See, I don't know. We're moving on to imperative sentences. Imperative sentences are sentences that are a command or they'll state a request. And so that could be something like, Mr. Folk, make a video. When we diagram sentences too, sometimes imperative sentences have implied subjects. Because typically you don't say a person's name when you tell them to do something. Sometimes what you do is you'll say, go get me a Dr. Pepper from the fridge. Dr. Pepper sounds nice right about now. Except we got our air conditioner fixed, so I'm doing well. But in that sentence, the subject is implied to be the person you're talking to. You don't have to say, hey, you. That's a little rude. But when we're diagramming sentences, just remember, sometimes if you don't see a subject, that you can be implied. All right, so that's our imperative. Exclamatory sentences show excitement and strong feelings. So that could be, Mr. Folk, I love your videos so much. They're amazing and they helped me get an A++ in my test. It's awesome, right? That's an exclamatory sentence. So you should have this in your study guide and your notes, but 4 and 5, that's your friend. Let's move on to our principal elements. Now, principal elements are going to be able to be found on, no, this is verb tense. No, it's not. Another life tip with Mr. Folk. When you're making a video, always bookmark your pages so you know which ones you need to go to. And that's why I'm on page 10, because it explains the principal elements that every sentence needs. In a sentence, you are going to need a subject and a predicate. Every sentence has one. If it doesn't have those 2 things, it's not a sentence. It might be something else. I don't know. But a subject we can define as who or what is the sentence about. And that could be a person, that could be a place, it could be a thing, it could be an idea. Generally, it's usually a noun, if not always. So when you're looking at a sentence and you're trying to find the subject, just ask yourself, who or what is this about? That's going to be your subject. Your predicate is a very fancy way of saying what the subject is doing, right? And that doesn't always have to be an action. Sometimes your predicate could be is, because they is doing something, and then the thing they're doing describes is. But by and large, your predicate's going to be a verb that helps you to be able to understand the action that's taking place. And you can also read this in page 10 of your book. Another thing that I want to cover is adjectives and adverbs. That's going to be on page 18 of your book. When we're looking at different parts of speech, an adverb is a part of speech that modifies verbs, adjectives, or other verbs. And that could be something like, the sentence we just did. Quickly can explain how they escaped. You could run slowly. You could sleep loudly. I don't know how you do that, but you could. And loudly would be an adverb describing sleeping. So that's an adverb, but an adjective is a little bit different. An adjective is something that describes a noun. And so that is, for example, in the sentence we just did, it's the mice, other mice. It could be the red car, right? Red would be an adjective describing the thing that it's in front of. My green dinosaur is holding up my phone right now while I film this video. Green describes dinosaur, and that would be an adjective. So when we look at sentences, it's good to remember that adverbs describe verbs generally, and adjectives describe nouns generally. So keep that in mind. And again, page 18 and 19 in your book. Check it out. It's really, really good stuff. Now, say that you are trying to look at your verb tenses. And for this, I'm going to use the board. This is how we explained it in class, but just for a refresher, the simple tense verbs are past, present, and future. Okay? Now, say that you're trying to understand when these things are happening. And what does it even mean that we have a verb tense? Why do we need verb tenses? Great questions. Now, say for example, your verb tense is in the past. If this mark in the middle is what's happening right now, if something is in the past, it means that it happened in this part of our timeline. Anything previous to what is currently going on. Alright? Now, if I have a present tense, that means that what is going on is happening right now. Alright? So we could define that by circling this. It's what's presently happening. But say that I have a future verb tense. That's anything that comes after what's currently going on. A good way to remember these is to think about them in terms of sentences. I love to go to McDonald's, and it's definitely my second favorite fast food restaurant. But say that I'm talking about McDonald's in the past tense. I would say, I went to McDonald's last night. But say that I'm talking about it in the present. I would say, I am at McDonald's right now. Oh, I wish I was at McDonald's right now. Number 9, double cheeseburger meal, no pickles, no onions, upsized to large with a Dr. Pepper. That's a good meal. But say that I think about McDonald's so much that I want to go there. In the future, I would say, I will go to McDonald's. And those are the 3 different types of simple verb tenses. Now, we aren't just studying the simple tenses. We also study the perfect tenses. Now, no, I know what you're thinking. Those aren't just thinking that they're better than everybody else, even though they are perfect. But when we have perfect tense, we're going to have the same basic structure, but we're going to refer to these three verb types in three different ways. So we're going to have past perfect, present perfect, and future perfect. All right? Past perfect, present perfect, future perfect. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Mr. Foat, why is it that instead of just writing past, present, and future, you wrote past perfect, present perfect, and future perfect? Another great question. You guys have so many good questions today. The whole reason that I write these this way is because I'm differentiating these from the simple tense. I don't write them the same. Reason being is because I'm trying to make sure that I'm able to differentiate these. We'll see on the timelines that when we're using something in the past perfect, it's incredibly different than the past present. The past simple, sorry. So, what's going on when I have a past perfect verb tense? Imagine this. In the past, right, I have an action that begins here, goes until here, and ends here. All right? We talk this way a lot. We say, last night I went to McDonald's before I went home. The reason that we talk like that is because time keeps moving. There's going to be another action that continues on. And so, to be able to refer to something starting and stopping both in the past is referred to past present. You can also look at your notes for this. I'm getting this from page 10 and 11 in your book. So if you want a refresher, if you want to look at it a little bit more, it's pretty helpful. A good way to think of this is that, I can just read what your book says. It says the action began and ended before another action. So it's just in the past, it began and ended, right? Let's move on to present perfect, because present perfect is my favorite perfect tense, because I think that it covers a lot of things we typically say. Imagine this. An action begins in the past, like most actions do, and that action continues and is still happening right here at the present. This is when we try to say that you began something in the past and it's still currently happening. So think about it this way. You could say, I went to McDonald's and I'm still eating, right? I went to McDonald's in the past and that action is continuing until the present. It's not completed. So if we're referring to something that has yet to be completed but started in the past, we will refer to that as present perfect. But say, for example, you want to say that you will have done something. You will have started and completed something in the future. That's future perfect. So on our timeline, an action begins in the future, continues, and ends. All in the future. This hasn't happened yet. A key phrase that you should be on the lookout for is will have. If someone says that they will have done something, it's pretty much always going to be a future perfect sentence. If I say, I will have eaten McDonald's by the end of tonight, I will have started and I will have ended eating McDonald's, but I'm right here. I haven't done either of those things yet. So, past perfect, present perfect, future perfect, all have these different meanings. I hope that the timeline is helpful. It's helpful for me too to kind of think through things. Look at your notes too, because they're gonna help explain things a little bit better. As far as your test goes tomorrow, you guys are super well prepared. And I really believe that you are going to know the information and that you're going to be ready. So as you're studying, have confidence in yourself. You got this, all right? I'm excited for you all to take this test because I know you're going to do well on it. So I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, and hopefully the hurricane won't be here yet. I don't think it's supposed to be, but I'm excited to see you. We'll see you guys tomorrow.